Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something really interesting, straight from the untethered soul. It's this idea that the constant voice in your head, the chatter we all hear, that it isn't actually you.
Exactly.
And our mission here is to really unpack that, to explore what distinguishing that could mean for finding more inner peace.
Yeah.
We know from you folks listening that there's a real interest in understanding the mind, how it works. And this feels like a really crucial piece.
It absolutely is. We're diving right into that internal monologue. I mean, think about it. You're just walking down the street, maybe, and there's this constant commentary, need to call mom, is that dog friendly? It never stops, like a narrator for every single thing.
It really is. And the book uses this brilliant term. It calls the voice a roommate.
That's such a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's so relatable, right? Because it's always there, chiming in, giving its opinion, narrating what you see. And you have to wonder, okay, why? Why does the mind do this? What's the actual point of all this, this constant internal talking?
Well, what's fascinating is the source suggests there is a purpose, or at least the mind thinks there is. It seems to be about creating a feeling of comfort, control, maybe.
How so?
By labeling everything, judging everything. That's nice. That person looks busy. It's like the mind tries to fit all these new bits of information into its existing worldview. Makes things feel a bit more known.
Yeah.
Secure.
Okay, that makes sense. But just like a real roommate, this inner one can be, incredibly annoying sometimes, Kim.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not always helpful. Like, you get something you really wanted, maybe a new gadget or something, you should be happy, right?
Right.
But then the voice starts, was it worth the money? Maybe the other model was better. And suddenly, that enjoyment just drains away.
Precisely. That inner critic can really poison positive moments. And it can definitely fuel anxiety, dissatisfaction. The book really hammers this point. Just recognizing how this roommate can negatively affect you, that's a huge first step. It creates a bit of distance.
And then there's that moment, it's almost funny when you truly get how relentless it is. The book talks about trying to tell the voice to just be quiet.
Right.
Only to realize the one doing the yelling is also the voice.
Exactly. It's that sort of loop. You can't win that way.
It's a bit mind-bending.
It really is. That dawning realization that, wow, this thing is always going, and trying to just shout it down, it's totally futile.
So, okay, we've identified the roommate. It's there. It talks a lot.
Yeah.
What does the book suggest we actually do about it?
Well, the first step isn't about fighting it. It's simpler. Just observe.
Observe the roommate.
Yeah. Throughout your day, just become aware of its commentary. When you meet someone new, do they like me? When the phone rings, who could that be? Even just, washing your hands. You start to notice, wow, there's this internal soundtrack to everything, even the really mundane stuff.
It's true. You don't always notice until you start looking for it.
And this observation leads to a really, really powerful question the book asks.
Okay.
How would you actually treat another person, like a real external person, who spoke to you the way your inner voice sometimes does? Oof.
Yeah.
Think about the criticism, the worry, the doubt it throws at you constantly.
You wouldn't tolerate it for a second, would you?
The source says you'd probably tell them to get lost. Politely, or maybe not so politely.
Absolutely. You'd never keep a friend around who is that negative all the time.
Yeah.
So why? Why do we give this internal voice so much weight, so much attention, even when it's making us miserable?
Yeah, why?
Think about like pre-wedding jitters or before a big exam. That voice can be absolutely brutal with the what-ifs.
Relentless.
And we listen. It's almost like we're afraid not to listen, afraid of what it might escalate to if we ignore it.
It's a kind of fear, yeah. And there's another great analogy that the book uses to help with this. It paints this picture of the inner voice as if it were literally walking beside you, like a companion, but a seriously disturbed companion.
Okay.
Someone.
If this voice, this roommate, isn't the real me, then who am I? What am I?
That's the core of it, yeah. And the book tackles this by really challenging our usual definitions of self.
Like what?
Well, we might say, I'm Yogi Amrit Desai, or I'm Frank Smith's wife. But those are labels, right? Names, roles.
Right. Temporary things. What happens when Frank's wife gets divorced? Or the yogi stops teaching?
Exactly. Does the person cease to exist? No. So labels aren't it. Then we might go to the physical. I'm 5'6", I've got brown hair.
But my body changes all the time. I wasn't 5'6" when I was 5 years old.
Precisely. Were you a different you back then? The book argues no. There's a consistency there.
It's the same experiencer, The one who was 5 and is now,
Yeah.
well, older. The one who remembers being Dorothy in the 5th grade play and is having this conversation right now.
Right. There's a continuous thread of awareness, and this awareness, this you, it's there even when the thoughts and emotions quiet down.
You mean like in meditation?
Meditation is a great example. Or even just those brief moments of quiet you might stumble into during the day. The mental chatter stops, but you are still there. You're aware of the silence, aware of the peace.
So the awareness exists even without the thoughts.
Which suggests the awareness is something deeper, something separate from the stream of mental activity.
Okay, so this leads towards the book's definition of the true self, doesn't it? Which is
I am the one who sees.
the observer.
The conscious observer. The awareness that is looking out from inside you, noticing the thoughts, noticing the emotions, noticing the world go by. It's described as being seated in the seat of consciousness.
The one who sees. It's a simple but pretty profound idea.
It is. And the way the source explains it is helpful. It's like just looking out a window. You don't try to see, do you?
No, you just see what's there.
Right. It's effortless. Awareness is like that. It's just naturally present. And the book points out this isn't some new idea. It connects it to concepts like the Buddhist self, the Hindu Atman, the Judeo-Christian soul.
So it's a common thread in deeper wisdom traditions.
Exactly. This idea of a core awareness beyond the personality.
Okay, so if this observer self is there, why do we still get so caught up in the internal drama?
Right.
Why all the conflict? The book talks about stored energy, samskaras.
Ah, yes, samskaras. Think of them like energetic knots or residues left over from past experiences.
Okay.
Especially experiences with a strong emotional charge. You know, a really painful breakup, a moment of intense joy, a terrifying event. That energy doesn't just disappear when the event is over.
It gets stuck somewhere.
It can, yeah. It gets stored in your system as an energetic pattern or imprint. And these samskaras, they can then get triggered later and influence how you react to things in the present.
And it's not just negative stuff, positive experiences too.
Absolutely. Clinging really hard to a wonderful memory, trying to hold on to that feeling, that can also create a kind of energetic pattern, a blockage in its own way.
Interesting. So we carry these energetic imprints, and the book talks about a choice we constantly make, opening or closing.
Yeah.
How does that relate?
It's about our basic response to life as it happens. Do we meet experiences with a sense of openness, allowing even difficult feelings to flow through? Or do we instinctively close down, withdraw, resist?
Bracing ourselves.
Exactly. And that closing response is often driven by these stored samskaras. You know, maybe a certain smell instantly makes you feel anxious because it's unconsciously linked to a bad memory that's closing. Or a different smell makes you feel warm and happy that's opening. The key is that closing can become this automatic protective habit.
And this ties into the heart. The book mentions the heart is more than just the physical organ.
Right. It talks about the heart as a subtle energy center. These stored impressions, these samskaras, they can essentially create disturbances or blockages in that heart energy field.
Which explains why our moods can shift so quickly sometimes.
It can be a factor, yeah. Feeling open and light one minute, then suddenly heavy or defensive the next. Often it's because some external trigger just activated one of those underlying energy patterns.
Okay, so if we want that inner freedom the book keeps mentioning, it says we have to let go. Let go of what exactly? These samskaras.
Primarily, yes. Let go of the stored emotional baggage. And crucially, let go of the need to constantly protect ourselves, the habit of closing down whenever something feels uncomfortable.
It uses that analogy, right? Being locked in a dark house but wanting sunlight.
Yeah, it's powerful. You can't experience the light if you refuse to unlock the doors and open the windows. You can't experience inner freedom if you're constantly guarding all that stored pain and fear.
So spiritual growth isn't about avoiding triggers, but about how we respond when triggered.
That seems to be the core message. It's becoming aware right in that moment when you feel that internal energy shift, that tightness, that anger, that fear bubbling up. Recognizing that as the moment of choice.
The choice, too.
To consciously let go of the reaction, to not get pulled into the drama, to not defend the part of you that feels hurt or attacked. Just release the clenching.
And the advice is to practice this with small things first.
Definitely. Don't wait for a major crisis. Practice with the everyday annoyances. Someone beeps at you unnecessarily. Your coworker borrows your pen and doesn't return it.
Little things that normally get under your skin.
Yeah. Notice the irritation arise, and instead of feeding it, just let it pass through. Don't build a whole story around it.
Because the mind loves to build stories, doesn't it? Loves the
Oh,
melodrama.
absolutely. It can take a tiny incident and blow it way out of proportion. The practice is recognizing that tendency and choosing not to participate in the mind's soap opera.
And this relates to that idea of finding balance, avoiding extremes, the pendulum swing.
Yes, the Source uses that pendulum metaphor really effectively. We swing back and forth, right? Clinginess versus detachment in relationships, binge eating versus extreme dieting, total chaos versus rigid control.
Of these extremes.
And they're all unstable. They drain energy. The path of wisdom, the book suggests, is finding that center point, that place of balance and equilibrium where there's clarity and stability.
Okay, and this whole spiritual journey, it's not about getting rid of problems, is it? It's more about using them.
Using them as opportunities for growth, yeah. The analogy used is like having a thorn stuck deep inside you.
A thorn.
Yeah, an inner sensitivity, a stored wound. It's always there, but you only feel the pain when something external presses on it.
Yeah.
Like maybe you have a deep fear of rejection, and you feel fine until someone criticizes you, and then it hurts. The criticism didn't create the thorn, it just activated it.
So the feeling, like loneliness, when you see a happy couple, it's activating something already there.
Exactly. And the work isn't necessarily to magically pull out the thorn, but to learn how to be okay when it gets touched. To experience the feeling, the loneliness, the hurt, whatever it is, without resisting it, without judging it, just allowing it to be felt and passed through.
This reframing is fascinating. It suggests that our normal state of constant mental defense and psychological worry isn't actually normal or healthy.
It's a radical idea, isn't it? The book compares it to our physical body. We don't usually walk around constantly aware of our liver or our spleen, right?
No, only when something's wrong.
Exactly. But with our psyche, we're often constantly aware, constantly managing, constantly protecting. The book implies this constant awareness of the psyche's troubles is itself a sign of imbalance. Like we're always slightly psychologically unwell.
And a big reason for that, it suggests, is the impossible job we give our minds.
Right. We want it to make everyone like us. We want it to predict the future perfectly. We want it to control outcomes that are fundamentally uncontrollable.
Tasks it just can't do.
No wonder it's hyperactive and anxious. It's set up for failure, operating from a place of underlying fear.
So the core practice, the real spiritual work, is about relaxing, even with pain.
Relaxing through the pain. Becoming comfortable with uncomfortable feelings moving through you. That's the key to freedom, the book argues. Freedom from being constantly bothered and reactive to the world.
And that leads to another powerful analogy, the house of thoughts. Can you unpack that one?
Yeah. Imagine you build this mental house around yourself for protection. But you build it with thick walls, hardly any windows, and you keep the shutters locked tight.
To keep the scary stuff out.
Exactly. But what you also keep out is everything else. The light, the fresh air, the vastness of reality. The book calls it the ocean of light.
So the house isolates us.
It limits our consciousness, keeps us trapped in our own narrow perspective. Enlightenment, in this analogy, is the process of those walls crumbling, letting the light in, experiencing that wider reality.
It's about going beyond those self-imposed limits. Recognizing that our finite thinking is just thinking. It's not the whole picture.
Not even close. The universe is infinite, but the analytical mind tries to chop it up into finite little pieces, creating this mental model of reality.
Why? For control.
Seems like it. If I have a model, I feel like I understand, like I can predict, like I'm in charge, but the model is never reality itself.
And when reality doesn't match the model,
that's when we suffer. We get frustrated, resistant, anxious. We try to force reality to fit our limited mental picture.
Like when unexpected things happen, loss, change, things that break the model.
Exactly. We can feel panic then, trying desperately to glue the pieces of our broken model back together. But the book suggests these moments are actually huge opportunities to learn, to see the limitations of the old model, to potentially build a wider, more flexible one, or even to start letting go of the need for a rigid model altogether.
So we face this choice. Stay in the seemingly safe, familiar house or cage of our current understanding.
Comfort zone.
Or step out into the unknown towards greater freedom, even if it feels scary initially. Like a tiger pacing in its cage, it feels safe, but it's confinement.
Beautifully put. And spirituality, in this view, isn't about arriving somewhere safe and staying there.
No.
It's the commitment to keep going beyond, to never stop pushing the boundaries of that comfort zone, exploring the unknown.
Okay. Now, how does our attention, our focus, play into creating these limits in the first place? The book mentions clinging.
Right. Imagine your inner space is naturally vast and open, Thoughts and feelings arise and pass through, like clouds.
Okay.
Clinging happens when you focus your awareness intensely on one particular cloud, one thought, one emotion. You grab onto it.
I don't let it go.
Exactly. And by holding it there with your attention, you give it solidity, importance. It stops being just a passing cloud and becomes a building block of your self, your story.
Yeah.
I'm an anxious person. I'm someone who is wronged.
And we do this with social roles, too. The masks we wear.
Oh, definitely. We learn from a very young age to present acceptable versions of ourselves, these personas or facades. We hide the parts we think others won't like.
Society kind of rewards that, doesn't it?
It often does. Fitting in feels safer. But the book pushes us. Who are you really behind that mask, and how much energy does it take to keep it perfectly in place?
So living spiritually involves...
What?
Dropping the mask.
Yeah.
Letting go of the effort.
It's about non-participation in the struggle. Letting go of the constant need to define yourself by events, by roles, by what others think. Allowing life to happen, experiences to flow through, without them leaving these deep negative scars or forcing you to constantly build and defend a persona.
And embracing those moments when the model breaks. Seeing them as freedom.
Yes. Seeing the breakdown not as a disaster, but as the structure dissolving, opening up space for something truer, something freer.
Which brings us to maybe the most direct path the book suggests. Unconditional happiness.
A really challenging but powerful idea.
It's presented as a fundamental choice, isn't it?
Yes. Basically asking, are you willing to choose to be happy right now, regardless of whether your external circumstances match your preferences?
That seems huge.
It is. But the logic is compelling. If you commit to being happy no matter what, you have to start letting go of all the parts of you that insist on being unhappy for various reasons.
The parts that hold on to grievances, fears, judgments.
All of it. You have to transcend your personal reasons for melodrama and suffering. It becomes a direct path because it forces the necessary inner work.
And stepping back, looking at our tiny lifespan in this vast universe.
Yeah.
Choosing joy seems almost rational.
It does, doesn't it? Given the sheer miracle of existence, why spend it closed off and miserable? The book connects this openness to joy with experiencing the divine, seeing God as inherent joy and love.
There's that parable, too, about God and the unhappy human.
Yeah, it gently highlights how strange our constant complaining might seem from a wider, more loving perspective.
So this consistent choosing to let go, to stay open even when it's hard. It's like a trial by fire.
That's the phrase used, yes.
Yeah.
Burns away the veils, the illusions, the limiting beliefs, and the crucial realization is that we're not actually fighting the external event.
We're fighting.
Our internal resistance to the experience the event triggers within us. The struggle is inside.
Always inside. And that pendulum idea comes back again too, right? Balance.
In everything. Closeness in relationships, swinging between suffocating proximity and cold distance, temperature too hot, too cold. Eating, starving, stuffing ourselves. The wisdom is always in finding the center.
The middle way.
All great teachings point towards that balance, avoiding the instability of extremes.
And ultimately, the goal is this direct connection. Identifying with that deeper awareness, the observer.
Yes. When you start identifying more with the one who sees rather than the thoughts and emotions being seen, transformation happens more naturally. You start embodying qualities like
Love, compassion.
Exactly. Less judgment, more understanding. You move away from negativity almost automatically because you're resonating with a deeper part of yourself.
And the book describes this as knowing God, not through belief, but through this transformed self.
Knowing God through becoming more godlike, in a sense. More loving, more peaceful, more joyful.
Leading towards that ultimate goal mentioned in many traditions, merging with the oneness.
That sense of dissolving the boundaries of the small self and merging into the larger universal consciousness, finding ecstasy in just witnessing creation unfold, seeing the divine everywhere as this unconditional love and refuge.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, if we distill the core insight from the Untethered Soul for this deep dive.
It's fundamentally this. That voice in your head, the roommate, it's not you. You are the awareness behind it.
You're the one who sees.
You're the one who sees.
So key things for listeners to maybe take away and play with.
Okay. First, just start noticing the roommate. Gently, without judgment. Just observe its chatter. Second, start questioning its stories. Are they really true? Are they helpful?
Don't just blindly believe it.
Right. Third, practice identifying with the silent awareness, not the thoughts or emotions. Feel into that deeper space.
Okay.
Fourth, experiment with letting go. When you feel that closing down reaction to something uncomfortable, see if you can consciously relax and allow the feeling to pass through instead.
Even with small stuff.
especially with small stuff. And finally, really contemplate that choice. Unconditional happiness. What would it mean to commit to being happy regardless?
Powerful takeaways, and maybe a final thought for people to chew on.
Yeah.
If you really consistently lived from that place of the observer, the one who sees, how would that change everything? Your daily life, your relationships, your sense of self? What kind of peace, what kind of freedom might actually open up?
Something to really sit with.
Definitely. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today.